Brought to you by In the Know News, the story you're about to hear is the kind of heartbreaking, dramatic, and deeply personal situation that changes how people see immigration policy. Because in the quiet wine-producing town of Newberg, Oregon, a beloved community leader and vineyard manager named Moises Sotelo Casas, 54, was abruptly taken from his everyday life and deported to Mexico after nearly 3 decades in the United States, leaving behind a devastated family, shocked coworkers, and an entire community struggling to make sense of what was once considered a safe and stable life. Sotelo Casas, who had lived and worked in Oregon's famed Willamette Valley since the early 1990s, building a respected career managing vineyards and running his own vineyard management business, was unexpectedly detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, agents earlier this year as he was leaving for work. Neighbors would later tell reporters his truck was found abandoned near a local church before his daughter tracked his phone to an ICE facility. And within weeks he was deported to Mexico, despite widespread support and public outcry from local residents, growers, and fellow business owners who could not believe someone so integral to the region's agricultural success could be removed so suddenly and permanently. Friends and family immediately shared their disbelief and deep sorrow, with many describing Moises as not only a hardworking and knowledgeable figure in the Oregon wine industry, but also a mentor to younger workers, a dependable employer, and a fixture of the community whose absence was felt instantly, sparking a wave of emotional reactions both online and in person as locals voiced frustration, grief, and fear over the way the situation unfolded. With some neighbors saying his arrest seemed inhumane, and others publicly questioning why someone with decades of positive contribution could be swept up without warning, a concern that rippled through town and left many wondering who could be next. His daughter, Alondra Sotelo Garcia, then just 26 years old, was thrown into an almost unimaginable position, quitting her job and stepping in to manage her father's vineyard operations while trying to keep the family business afloat and support her displaced parents, who were suddenly living in Mexico after his deportation, leaving Alondra to balance the emotional strain of separation with the very real pressure of running a company with limited experience. Leaning on her father's longtime mentee and local staff for guidance as the community watched her determined efforts to preserve her father's legacy even as she faced profound personal loss. In interviews and local coverage, Alondra has shared moments from those early days after his detention when she received a call from her father from a Portland ICE facility, and his simple words, "You know what to do," became a driving force behind her decision to return home and shoulder responsibilities she never expected at her age, reflecting the heavy emotional burden that families like hers carry when a parent is suddenly taken from their home and sent across borders. The emotional toll has been significant, not just for Alondra, but for her siblings, extended family, and community members, many of whom supported the Sotelo Casas family through fundraising, social media campaigns, and public statements, while neighbors described him as a mentor who taught skills to countless workers and someone who contributed substantially to the local economy, making his sudden removal feel like a collective loss rather than an isolated enforcement action. Beyond the personal grief, local vineyard workers expressed real anxiety about what the deportation signaled for immigrants in the agricultural industry, fearing that others who have worked in Oregon's fields and vineyards for years could face similar fates, creating an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty that has impacted morale and raised questions about the future of farm labor in a region that relies heavily on immigrant contributions. Agricultural groups have pointed out that when experienced workers like Moises are removed, it disrupts not just individual livelihoods, but also the rhythms of harvest, production, and business continuity, as vineyard owners and employees must suddenly adapt to a workforce altered by enforcement actions. And that impact can ripple outward to affect wine production and local economies that depend on steady labor. For many in Newberg, the deportation was more than a policy decision. It was a moment that laid bare the fragile nature of immigration stability, showing how even long-established residents are vulnerable and how sudden enforcement can leave families fractured, triggering conversations about fairness, due process, and community identity as people try to reconcile their image of a hardworking neighbor with the reality of deportation proceedings that often do not take personal history or contributions into account. In response, community members have shared messages of support, both publicly and privately, reaching out to the Sotelo Garcia family, offering emotional support and help with business challenges, while others have taken to online forums to openly question the enforcement actions and advocate for clearer, more humane immigration processes, citing Moises' decades of positive impact and the lack of clear criminal history as reasons why his removal felt unjust. As harvest seasons come and go, Alondra continues to lead the vineyard, balancing the weight of responsibility with the hope that her father's dedication to his craft and his community will not be forgotten, showing resilience in the face of separation, and reminding everyone that behind every deportation headline are real families navigating heartbreak, economic pressure, and the complex reality of living with the consequences of immigration law. This Oregon story has become symbolic of broader debates over enforcement, immigrant contributions, and community cohesion, making it not just a local tragedy, but a national conversation about how immigration actions affect families, businesses, and the very fabric of towns like Newberg, where the vines still grow and where people still remember the man who helped tend them for so many years. A testament to strength, loss, and the enduring impact one life can have on an entire community.